Well, welcome everybody. It's great to see you. Today the topic is questions that make us shine. Questions that make us shine. The big questions most people ask at some point in their lives are usually, who am I? Or why am I here? Or does God really exist? And what happens after I die? And these questions have been around since Adam and Eve. And really, they're the same ones that keep revolving through humanity. Sometimes we wonder where God is. We may not wonder if He exists. See, a well-placed question will make us think deeper and harder than if we'd just been given an answer. And God's a master of this. God's a master of asking questions. And so properly placed questions can both strip us of our innocence as well as given us the ability to bring ourselves back to a pure state of believing. Questions can make us shy, or questions can make us shine. And there's a few questions people have pondered not so deeply since the fall of man. Like, if a person told you that they were a pathological liar, would you believe them? You know, is there another word for synonym? You know, why are they called apartments when they're all stuck together? Get it? Apartments? You know, and if you're bald, what hair color do they put on your driver's license? These are just some questions. How about if God sneezed, what would you say? And I always wondered, is it legal to park next to a fire hydrant if your car's on fire? So those are just some heavy things, that people think. Or how come we don't ever see the headline, "Psychic wins lottery"? It seems to me if they're good psychics, they should be able to do that. See, but I've been fascinated by the questions in the Bible. From God asking Adam after he blew it, "Where are you?" To Jesus asking Peter, "Do you know who I am?" Or who do you say that I am? That's a pretty big question. And there's thousands of questions in the Bible, thousands and thousands. Like in the Garden of Eden, after Adam blew it, God said, "Adam, where are you?" Quickly followed by, "Who told you that you were naked?" We're going to get to that in a little bit. And then to Eve, God asked, "What is this that you've done?" Or, "Do you realize what you've done, sweetie pie?" And God said to Cain, the firstborn son of Eve, after he had murdered his brother Abel, "Where's your brother?" And Cain said to God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Pretty bold for him to say that, but these are all questions. The angel said when Sarah was told she'd become a mom in her late age, but in her heart she laughed in disbelief, he asked her husband, "Why did she laugh?" Why did she laugh? I mean, if you were an older gal and God told you were going to have your first child, it may be laughable. But if God said it, right after that, God said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And really, if Sarah at 75 years old can have a baby, our problems may not be so tall. And what we're going to get to here is it's the attitude that Adam lost in the beginning that has carried on. That attitude of innocence gets us to stop believing and expecting God to supply our need. Reminds me of the angel speaking to young Mary, telling her she's going to become pregnant. And she responds saying, "But I've never been with a man. How can this be possible?" And then in Luke 1:34, it says, that's what it said in Luke 1:34 and 37, it says, "For with God, nothing shall be impossible." So he told her almost the same thing that he told Sarah, except for Mary was a teenager. And what about those hungry lepers waiting outside the starving city gates, and they said, "Why sit we here till we die?" I mean, that saved their life, and it saved the life of all the people in that city. They just ask a question. Sometimes a question is the best thing we can ask ourselves if it gets us moving. If it turns us inward, it's not good. But if it gets us moving outward, it is. Remember when teenage Jesus left his mother and father for a few days when they're coming back from Jerusalem? And they were worried sick over him. And he said, "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I'd be about my Father's business?" Now, he might seem like a wise ass, but that's what he was doing. He was learning. He was growing. He just thought they would know that. They would know this. But he asked them a question to get them thinking. And Jesus, to a packed house one time, a literal house that was just packed to the gills with people. His mother and brothers were standing outside. Remember that record? And they wanted to abduct him because they thought he was crazy. And he said to that crowd in there, he said, "Who are my brothers and sisters? Who are my brothers and sisters?" Now, his real brother and his mother could hear that. But he said this to this group of people who were listening to him. See, Jesus, remember when he took that woman, or he talked to that woman who was taken in the very act of adultery, and they were going to stone, all the people had rocks, and they were circled around her. They were going to stone her to death. Horrible way to die. And then he said, "Whoever is without sin, let him cast the first stone." And then they dropped their rocks. It didn't sound right. Then they dropped their stones, and they walked away. And he said, "Woman, where are thine accusers? Where's your accusers now?" He asked her a question to get her thinking. And then he told her that her sins were forgiven. How healing would that have been to that woman? And to Simon Peter, he asked him once, "Do you love me?" Right at the end. In his resurrected body, he asked Peter, right before he ascended, "Do you love me? Do you really love me?" What would Peter think? That would be a hard question for him to take. What about Paul on the road to Damascus? He said, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Sort of the same thing. Where are you at? What are you doing with the gift that I've given you? And that's really the question I'm going to keep asking. What are we doing with the gift that we've been given? Here's a Bruce Lee quote. "A wise man can learn more from a foolish question than a fool can learn from a wise answer." There's always something we can learn. Here's one by Martin Luther King Jr. "Life's most persistent and urgent question is," quote, "what are you doing for others?" End of quote. What are we doing for others? What are we doing with our gift? It's going to be for other people. If we boil it all down, it's going to be not just for us. It will benefit us. It's just like let's just say a bicycler, somebody who loves cycling. Does the road give back to him or her? Well, in a sense, just like a runner who's on his favorite trail. He's not doing much, but does that give back to him? The answer is yes. What if you're into sewing or into gardening or into building or doing something with your hands or it gives back when that's the same thing. It always gives back. When you put your heart into something, whatever it is, it's going to give back to you. Somehow, some way, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's going to give back. So now, what's in your hand? Exodus 4, 1 through 5, and then Moses said, "What if they will not believe me and will not listen to what I say? For they may say, 'The Lord hath not appeared to you.' And the Lord said to him, 'What's in your hand?' And he said, 'A staff.'" This is when he saw that burning bush. And God said, "Throw it down. Throw it on the ground." So he takes his walking stick. Now he's 80 years old or something now. And he threw the thing down. and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. I love that. He threw it down. Seen an old guy with his pants pulled up past his belly button, his little white patent leather belt, shuffling his way off. No, he was probably quite vital and vibrant. But the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand and grab it by its tail. Now, most people don't want to grab a snake by the tail. Yeah. They don't want to grab a snake. So he stretched out his hand and he caught it, and it became a staff in his hand. And I think the text reads more like he pulled it straight, and it became a staff again. And that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you. So Moses is alone at this point. Then the timing of this question really was the burning bush. And God wanted Moses to go on a mission, to go do something for him, which was just go back to Egypt and just lead out a few million people from one of the most powerful governments on earth. That's all. Just tell them, and this little trick is going to help. Moses goes, okay, and he took off, and so he had to be the spokesperson to the Pharaoh, and now he had not been back in 40 years. He hadn't seen his siblings and stuff in 40 years. That's a long time. How much does the world change in 40 years? I'm sure it changed some. They probably had different iPhones. The computers were different. They upgraded them every 5 years. It went through a bunch of iterations at that time. The cars looked a little different. They were boxier, and now they're a little more rounded. And then they got boxier, and they got a little more rounded. You see, whatever it is. Went diesel, went back to, turbo diesel, went to gasoline, whatever. You see, but then he had to go back. And God showed Moses that he could do the miraculous. He just reminded, and Moses was meek enough to do that. And this is all about regained innocence. It's getting back your shine, getting back your mojo. Who are we designed to be? What are we designed to do? And the bigger picture to us about this is it wasn't just what God asked Moses to do, but it's sort of like what's in our hand. What are you good at? What are you holding on to? Just like Adam, when he hid, he just covered up his gift. He covered up who he was, and he hid what he was designed to be. And God had to get him out of that mindset. He lost his innocence at one point. We're going to get to a great section of Scripture at the end of who God allowed into the promised land. I think it'll really bless you. So it's not what we've got, it's what we do with what we've got. You see, that's the key here. Why, like that one thing I was saying earlier, why sit we here till we die? Like those lepers said. And then I think about the question, like, what are you doing here? And in 1 Kings 19, it talks about Ahab reported to Jezebel. Jezebel's female. You might know a politician, you think it might seem like that, And everything that Elijah had, Ahab, which is the husband of of his queen, he was telling her everything that was going on. Oh, honey, here's what's going on. He was sort of subservient to her, and including the massacre of the prophets. And Jezebel immediately sent messengers to Elijah with her threat. Now he had made sure the prophets of Baal and Balaam Baal got killed. And so he sent a message. She sent a messenger to Elijah with her threat. The gods will get you for this, and I'll get even with you. By this time tomorrow, you'll be as dead as one of those prophets. She was shrill. And when Elijah saw how things were, he ran for dear life to Beersheba. Now, this was a tough guy, Elijah. And he went far into the south of Judah. He went a long way from where this queen was, mean queen. And he left his young servant there. Sure, he was happy about that. And then he went into the desert another day's journey. So he went a whole day or so journey. And he came to a lone broom brush. It must be a tree that grows out, has some shade. And he collapsed in its shade. And he wanted in the worst way to be done with it all, to just die. Enough of this, God. Take my life. I'm ready to join my ancestors in the grave. And so exhausted, he fell asleep under that lone broom brush in the middle of the desert. And suddenly an angel shook him awake and said, "Get up and eat!" And he looked around to his surprise, and right by his head was a loaf of bread baked on some coals and a jug of water. And he ate the meal and went back to sleep. Now you got to be pretty bummed to not realize there's a guy standing there. He just cooked you a meal and brought you water. And then the angel came back, shook him awake again and said, "Get up and eat some more. You got a long journey ahead of you." And he's like, "What? I'm just going to lay here and die." And so he got up, ate, drank his fill, and he set out. And nourished by that meal, he walked 40 days and nights. It's sort of the third time. Didn't Moses, wasn't he out for 40 days and nights? And Jesus was out for 40 days and nights. And so Elisha, so sort of neat here. Jesus had to do something these guys did. And all the way to the mountain of God, to Horeb. And when he got there, he crawled into a cave and went to sleep. And then the word of God came to him. "So Elijah, what are you doing here?" And there's the question. It's like, Adam, what are you doing? Where are you? What are you doing here? What are you doing right now? What are you doing with your mission, with your gift, with your shine? And this guy was afraid for his life. Because this queen, when she said she was going to do something, she made it happen. And he needed Elijah to get moving. And so he set Elijah to thinking again. And he did this by asking a question. "So Elijah, what are you still doing here?" And I ask you the same question. What are you doing with who you're designed to be? I ask myself that question. What am I doing? We're all here for a reason. And everybody knows their gift, but we just don't do it sometimes. We get busy, we get distracted. Here's another question. Whom shall I send? And Isaiah 6, it talks about this, and it said in verse 6, verse 1, I'm sorry. "In the same year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a grand throne way up high, with a flowing cape that filled the whole temple." That's some pretty vivid revelation. "And bright flaming creatures waited on him." But they've talked about angels as looking like bright, like lightning. And here it goes. "Each had 6 wings, 2 covering its face, 2 covering its feet, and 2 for flying." Sort of a weird mind picture. "And like some fiery choir, they would call back and forth continually." In my backyard, I have a fence, and you have birds, and they'll be talking to each other from one fence to the other. I guess they are, talking to something. Then they end up flying off together. See, flaming creatures. And it says, "Holy, holy, holy is the Eternal, the commander of heavenly armies. The earth is filled with his glorious presence." Now this is what they know. The earth is filled with his glorious presence. What if we believe that? When we're out prospecting or bidding or trying to help or have a project that seems ultimately hard, or we lost an employee or got an employee that isn't any good, or have a workmate who isn't so good, or two, you see. And the earth is filled with His glorious presence. And they were so loud that the door frame shook, and the holy house kept filling with smoke. And Isaiah, I am in so much trouble. I'm ruined. I'm just a human being, fallible and stammering. My lips are encrusted with filth. I live among people just like me. But here I am. I've seen with my very own eyes that none other than the King, the Eternal, the Commander of the heavenly armies. He's going, I'm nothing, but man, what did I just see? You might have seen something at one time in your life. You might have had a dream, a vision, something. Then one of the flaming creatures flew to me holding a red-hot ember with which it had taken from God's table, the temple altar, with a pair of tongs, and the creature held it to my lips. I don't know. I don't know if he felt it or not, this flaming creature. Look, with the touch of this burning ember on your lips, your guilt is turned away. All your faults and wrongdoings are forgiven. Now, that'd be quite a, when you're thinking you're not good enough, and then this angel flies there, touches you with a hot coal and says, you're good enough, you're forgiven. Eternal One, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? This is the question that now God asked. And Isaiah said, here I am. Send me. That question, those questions, they change lives. The questions we think, okay, what am I doing now? What am I going to do with my life? It changes us at times. Each of us have a job, a calling, and a gift. We've each been sent. Let's believe we can absolutely do what God said we can do. Now the first two questions. This is back to Adam in the garden. And some of this stuff will bless you and some of it might confuse you. But Genesis chapter 3, and suddenly, verse 7, their eyes were opened to a reality previously unknown. For the first time they sensed their vulnerability and rushed to hide their naked bodies, stitching fig leaves into crude loincloths. Then they heard the sound of the eternal God walking in the cool, misting shadows of the garden. The man and his wife took cover under the trees and hid from the eternal God. Now, this word naked here is the same word that was used when the serpent is called subtle. He's the most subtle beast of all the creatures on earth. This is the same word. The word naked and the word subtle are the exact same Hebrew word. So what does naked really mean? It can be translated naked, or smooth, or cunning, or crafty, or prudent. Maybe they realized, they finally took a look at who they were, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Do you think Adam and Eve shined in the garden? They had full-on dominion. What does that mean? Adam named all the animals. How hard would that be? Okay, some people say they can do it, And the loincloth, we'll get back to this in a minute. This loincloth or apron, it says in King James. And it can be translated belt, apron, or armor. Now just think about this. It could have been that they totally covered themselves with the fig leaves, like a coat of camouflage. They could have totally covered themselves. They did not want to be found. Or it could have been like a ghillie suit, which military or hunters use. It looks like leaves, it just covers them. That word loincloth or apron for Adam and Eve, it could mean they totally sewed together and totally covered themselves. We don't know. We just don't know. We've always been taught, you've seen little pictures of them walking around with a little fig leaf covering their, but it may not have been that way. They could have totally covered to hide. I remember when I was a kid, we used to sneak around, not really for any good reason, but we'd dress in all black so nobody could see us. Why? I painted my bicycle black, took the reflectors off. Why? It was stupid, but I didn't want to be seen. These guys were camouflaged. You hunters, you know what that means. You got these tree bark jobs and all these things, and it's hard to see them. I remember seeing a guy, I was driving down my street and all I saw was his head bobbing around in front of all my bushes. And I thought, this is crazy. It looked like just a white face just moving. And as I got close, I realized the guy had camouflage on. But I could not pick it up until I got close. So it could have been they were camouflaging themselves, Adam and Eve. And verse 8, then they heard the sound of the eternal God walking in the cool, misting shadows of the garden. The man and his wife took cover among the trees and hid from the eternal God. Had they experienced God in a physical form up to this point? I don't know. Is that why the serpent, or better translated, shiny one, was so effective? Did he resemble what God may have looked like if he showed himself that way? I don't know. Many times it talks about angels as these bright, shining beings, right? Well, he was Lucifer, the angel of light. He wasn't some slimy little snake. You see, he was the shiny one. Impressive. In the Bible it talks about all the diamonds and gold and silver and all the gems, they covered him. I mean, he was showy. He was beautiful. And he knew how to let it shine. Even though he was dark. It's a verse I just thought of, but Jesus Christ once asked, he says, he talked about, don't let your light be darkness. Don't let your light be darkness. What does that mean? How can light be darkness? Well, it must be available. It means the light of who you are. Don't darken it. Don't cover it. Don't shroud it. Don't put on a ghillie suit. Don't hide yourself. Don't put on the camouflage of the world so that you're not noticed anymore and you just fit effortlessly. That was hard for me to say. That you with no effort, you just fit right into the world. That's not what we're designed to be. That's not what Adam and Eve were designed to do. They were like children. If God said they could do something, they did it. Now all of a sudden, the thoughts turned inward. And they began to wonder, can I do it? Should I shine? Maybe they did shine too. Remember when Moses came down from the mountain? Didn't he have to put a bag over his head because he glowed? I mean, when you're living in that innocent purity, like Moses did, didn't Jesus shine on the Mount of Transfiguration? I mean, there's something there, folks. There's more than I'm really understanding. Don't let your light be darkness. Don't shroud it. Don't cover it. Don't camouflage it. Just let it shine. And as we start moving with that shine, the doors are just going to start opening and opening and opening and opening. It has to work that way. We just saw verses like that. The God of glory, He fills the earth. That's the God we serve. That's a God who cut us loose like a bunch of toddlers. Woo! If you knew there was no problems, if you knew all your need was going to be met, all the love you'd ever need would be there. All the material blessing that you'd ever need would be there. If you knew everything was done, all the healing that you would ever need would be there. If we really believed that, like an innocent child, would we see more of it? Oh, yeah. You want to see signs, miracles, and wonders? Everybody talks about them. All Christians talk about them, and they happen. There's some great movies on that stuff, too. But the cool thing, they do happen. But they'd happen more if we just had that childlike simplicity. See, these guys had experienced God in some way. They saw something beautiful that might have seemed similar to them as God, but He got them thinking about themselves. God didn't. God got them thinking about how to give their light. He got them thinking how to hide it, the enemy, the serpent, the shiny one. His light is darkness. His gift is darkness. And it shrouds this world. Look at it. Is it getting better? Sure doesn't seem like it's getting better. I don't care what any president says that it's the best time in the world to be alive. I think any time's the best time to be alive if you're alive, right? You see, were Adam and Eve really just hiding their shine? Were they covering their gift? And the answer is yes. They lost their innocence that day. They were afraid to let their light shine. Doesn't the Bible say, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven? Our lifestyle, our good works should bring people to God. It's the goodness of God that brings people to repentance, and usually the goodness of God comes from you or somebody like you. You know, they lived perfectly. And they lived perfectly with dominion. They owned the world. Jesus Christ showed that we could get that back. But we're afraid to really let that light shine. We're afraid to really try sometimes. I am. It's spooky sometimes when you really want to step out. You want to say, I'm going to make this, it's going to happen this week. The jobs are going to come in, this or that. And then sometimes they do, and then sometimes they don't. And then you start looking at, well, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? You know what I'm talking about. Why does this stuff keep happening to me? And then you get back that innocence again. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 it starts clicking. Bam, 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 bam. You get bonked a couple of times, but you keep going. God calling to Adam, verse 9, where are you? The first question God asks anybody, where are you? And it should be a question we should ask ourselves, where am I? What am I doing with my gift? Am I hiding it or am I shining it? God knew exactly where Adam and Eve were. He's not stupid. If He fills the whole universe, everywhere you walk, you're walking right through God. Isn't that crazy? That's where all these ancient religions get all these thoughts. They think everything's connected to the divine because it is. Not some guy with a big robe sitting on a throne, or whatever your crazy mind picture is. Gosh, He fills all things. If you think about it, you know, people think if they got away from this world, then they could live in perfection. But just answer me this. Let's say you were on a spaceship and you went all the way to Pluto and it was habitable, okay? And you set up an outpost there. You're all by yourself. Would you ever have a negative thought? I mean, would you wonder about life? Why am I here? You see, so wherever you go, so that the adversary, that what stops our shine is built into humanity at this point. I mean, they say that a child's only fear is a fear of what? Falling, right? But I think about a baby bird. Is it afraid of falling, a young bird? No. I saw a bird yesterday just go out of this high tree. It was a little finch, and it just dove straight down. Its wings folded back, and right before it hit the ground, it popped those wings out, and then it just landed like it was nothing. That's how our life can be. It may seem like we're falling, but we're just getting somewhere faster. You may just be getting to your goal faster. Just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Spread those wings. And God's there for you. Where are you? You know, he asked a question so they would have to verbalize exactly where their heart was at. Because if we can't describe what we're thinking, then it's hard to get out of a situation. If we're just mimicking what everybody else tells us we're supposed to think, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of that stuff. The same question is asked of each of us. Where are you? What are you doing with your gift today? What are you doing with that light? Do you really believe God encompasses all things? It says in Isaiah that he inhabits eternity. That's past, present, and future. What couldn't he do for you? Think he could find you a little job? Think he could direct you to a mate, to a friend, to a situation, to health? I'll say. But sometimes we're afraid to really step out on that with total expectation. It's scary. Because why? We might fail. One of the greatest fears of all humanity is fear of success, not fear of failure. Why would we say you learn from our mistakes? So mistakes are good. Make a lot of them. The more mistakes you make, the closer you're going to get towards your goal. You're going to make mistakes. Your lips have been touched with that hot coal, so to speak. You're forgiven for all time. So what are we so worried about? Step out. Let it shine. Take off that ghillie suit. Take off that camouflage. Let the light shine. Verse 10, and when I heard the sound of you coming in from the garden, I was afraid because I am naked. I'm naked, so I hid from you. See, Adam responded honestly. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And I keep thinking about these verses over and over and over and over. It's because people can't, you're going to have negative thoughts, but we have to learn to get out of that. Somebody's asking a question, okay, why did I think that? What's the point? Why did I have that piece of cake when I'm trying to lose weight? You see, we ask ourselves things like that. Okay, well, because I feel sorry for myself today. If you answer seriously, whatever. See, Adam responded honestly, and God, who told you that you're naked? Remember, that word naked could mean subtle or good at what you do. Prudent, smart. Who told you you're smart? Who told you that you're smart? Who told you that you're beautiful? Who told you that you have this light? Have you eaten from the tree in the center of the garden, the very one I commanded you not to eat from? If you look close, there's more than one tree. There's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then there's a tree of the tree of life. Now, some say they're the same thing. Some say they're different things. I'm not smart enough to know, but it sure is interesting. And in the book of Revelation, the tree of life is mentioned, but there's more than one of them. Read it sometime, find out how many there are. There's going to be more than one, whatever the tree of life is. And that's a whole nother teaching that we'll get sometime. But it's a great question. Because if you look up, it's like in Proverbs, it talks about the part of the tree of life is wisdom. Part of it is letting your light shine. It's part of the tree of life is what you already do. These are the questions God asks every human. Who told you you're naked? Why'd you lose that innocence? You used to trust me. You had dominion. You have dominion. Why do you think you don't anymore? Well, because you do something miraculous, people are going to say you're a nut job. You talk about doing miracles, they're going to absolutely say you're a nut job. You know, I mean, just think about this. The world just gets us to hide our shine. You see, who are you? Who told you you're naked? Who told you that you're smart? Who told you that you're powerful? Who told you that you are the greatest thing on earth? Who told you that? You know, because they just lived it before. They didn't try to analyze themselves. They just let it shine. You ever seen a kid with his personality? You know, then they come out of the womb and they have a little personality, don't they? And then you have another kid. Is that personality the same? I've never seen two kids in one family the same. There's 6 kids in my family. We're all totally different. Especially me. So, you know, it's crazy. You know, I think about things that you don't notice till the last minute. And I was running down this red Colorado trail, and the sky was this crisp blue. It was a beautiful day, but a little bit cool. And I saw a snake laying across the trail, and it was about 4 feet long, not too big. And I usually, when I see them doing that, they're sort of lethargic, so I just jump over them. Well, this time I was running, and I jumped and I looked down, and it was a rattlesnake. It wasn't just a bull snake like I usually see. And so when I run, I'm running pretty slow, and when I jump, I'm flying pretty low. So I'm low and slow. And I thought to myself, that's a rattlesnake. Feet, don't fail me now. And then it didn't pay any attention to me, and I kept going. But sometimes you don't see it till you're right over it. But you're going to see what you need to see, folks, so you can be what you need to be. God, the glory of God, the beauty, the light of God fills this earth. You know what's cool is God and the angels have the ability to love something that is as temporal as us. Isn't that something? How God is love. I mean, to me, it's just sort of amazing because they're beings, they don't have the emotions that we have. So love, true love has to be bigger than an emotion. It has to be a decision. You know, that higher love. We decide to love ourselves enough to let that light shine. We decide to love somebody else, you know, to let their light shine instead of trying to hold them back. And we hold people back when we piss and moan and complain about them behind their backs. It affects them. Everything you say and think affects something. See, they had lived up to that point with the innocence of a child. They had the total expectation of the miraculous, Adam and Eve. And then all of a sudden, can I do this? Oh no. What if I fail? What if I succeed? I don't know if I ever look as good as that thing. How can I ever be as great as this thing? You know, we ask ourselves the same thing. That's why we don't see more miracles, is because we don't want to. We're afraid to really shine. But there's points in our life where we do. I don't have time, but I mean, all of us could tell stories of miraculous things that happened. You know, of people coming up to you, giving you something, doing something for you, turn around, they're gone. It's like, what? You know, how did that happen? You'll hear something. You'll get a thought. Whatever it is, it's miraculous. Now, Deuteronomy 1, and we're going to close here, but I'm going to read verses. I'm going to start in verse 21, and this is set just before the children of Israel entered the promised land. Now, how long had they been waiting to go? 40 years. They'd been living in this wilderness, eating this stuff called manna that appeared every day. Now, would you begin to trust God with that? And you might take him for granted too, after a while. But these kids who were born in the wilderness, they didn't know anything but this great pillar of fire that lighted their evenings and a cloud that covered them and all the hot blue around them. They weren't just in a hot desert. They were covered with the cloud to protect them. They had a pillar of fire at night, and then every morning this stuff would appear. I mean, they just lived miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle day. And they didn't know anything different. They totally trusted God to supply all their need, these people who were born in the wilderness. And so this sets it up. Now, verse 21 of Deuteronomy 1, behold, the Lord thy God has set the land before thee. Go up and possess it. Go take it. As the Lord God of thy fathers has said unto thee, fear not, neither be discouraged. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Then verse 28, whither shall we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our hearts, saying, the people is greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to heaven. And moreover, we've seen the sons of the Anakims there. They're giants. They're just such big people. It scares me. Now these are people who had seen just miracle after miracle. The Red Sea split. Some of them saw this. The Pharaoh's army get drowned in that thing. Chariots just rolling around in there until they just sunk with their bronze wheels. You know, and everybody who left Egypt was healed. Now, that'd be enough for me. But that was the start of it. You see? And, you know, and then we've seen the sons of the Anakims there. Of course, like I said, they're giants. And then I said to you, dread not, neither be afraid of them. The Lord your God, which goeth before you, he shall fight for you, according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes. You just saw this stuff. You know, like a child, remember what's been done for you and others in the past. God is good always. God's good to you always. God's good to you and you and you and you always. He's always good. We just don't let our light shine enough to see it sometimes. When we live our gift, man, we're going to see more healing. We're going to see more deliverance. We're going to see more cash when we need it. It has to happen, folks. Remember what God's done for you and for others in the past. Verse 31, and in the wilderness, where thou hast seen how that the Lord thy God bare thee, as a man doth bear his son, that means carry them, in all the way that ye went until ye came into this place. God's saying, man, I carried you for 40 years. You ever felt like you carried somebody at work? You seem like you're doing all the work, and they're just messing around at the water machine, the coffee machine, you know, over at the pickup truck. They're on their cell phone. They're texting. They're posting to Facebook when they should be working, and you feel like you're doing. That's how God knows that's how it is for him. We're wasting so much time. We waste so much time. And God said, I carry you, man. Yet in this thing ye did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you. He went there before you to search you out a place to pitch your tents in, a fire by night to show you by what way you should go, and in a cloud by day. When the cloud moved, the children of Israel moved. When the pillar of fire moved, the children of Israel moved. That's how they knew. Duh. Can it be any simpler? It's not any harder for us, folks. God knows exactly how to work in you and to show you and to talk to you and to give you revelation, to inspire you. Whether it's a dream at night, a daydream, whether you see something, God tells you, who cares? Somebody tells you something, you read something. He can show you in a multiplicity of ways. That's a question there. And it says, who went in the way before you? And there's the question. God's already been there. He's already done your life. I'm going to say that again. God's already lived your life if he lives in the future, right? He's already lived it. Don't you think he knows the best steps to take? My God. He knows where you should be living. Sometimes it's the right thing to move. Sometimes it's the right thing to stay. You know what to do. You see? And the Lord heard the voice of your words and was wroth and swore, saying, surely there is none, not one of these men of this evil generation, see that good land which I swear to give unto you. There's not one of these guys, these old guys, that are going to see this land. Because you don't believe it. You don't believe it's a promised land. Do you believe in your promised land? You know, he said, which I swear to give unto your fathers. If God said, I swear I'm going to take care of your every need. I swear I'm going to take care of your every need. Now, if a man said that to you, the richest man on earth, you'd go, woo, man. Whew. I'm ready. Let's go. Daddy Warbucks, let's do it. You see, God said it. I swear to give it to you. And he said, but here's the ones who are going to get to go in. Save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and he's going to see it. This guy Caleb's going to see it because he didn't wimp out. He didn't think the enemy was bigger than him. He said, we're bigger than the enemy. And they're a lot taller than him. He's Anakins. Yeah. And to him will I give the land that he has trodden upon, and to his children, because he hath wholly followed the Lord. It's because he had that childlike innocence. The thing that Adam lost, he figured out how to keep it. Even when everybody else didn't, he was one. And also the Lord was angry with me for your sake, saying, thou shalt not go in thither. God told Moses, you can't even go in. And he was the guy told to bring him in. Because Moses didn't believe big enough anymore. Isn't that crazy? Without Moses, they wouldn't have got there. But God said, you can't even go in. People going there are going to be total childlike believers. They're going to let their lights shine. They're going to totally expect me to supply their need. But Joshua the son of Nun, which standeth before thee, he shall go in thither. Encourage him, for he will cause Israel to inherit it. He's going to make it happen. We're God's hands and feet sometimes. We help make it happen for other people at times. God carries us and we carry others. Now verse 39, this is the greatest thing. Moreover, your little ones, which ye said should be a prey. And he's talking to all the children of Israel. The little kids, which you said are going to get slaughtered when we go in there, when we cross that Jordan River. They're going to be a prey to these people. And your children, which in the day had no knowledge between good and evil. That your children, which have no knowledge of good and evil, they shall go in thither, and unto them will I give it, and they shall possess it. You don't compare yourself to evil, folks. That's what he's trying to say here. They knew about good, they knew about evil, but they didn't have that experiential knowledge of it. They just had been trained their whole life to totally trust God. But these questions I've asked today, and there's many others, there's thousands of them in there, they can help us get our hearts back, our minds back, so we can trust. This childlike simplicity was the attitude that Adam lost. This attitude we lose when we lose it. Every time you lose it, it's because you lost a childlike attitude. We think we're so smart and mature and modern. Get back to being like a child. I read a book recently that said the best thing we could do is be stupid. And I thought, what's he talking about? But he's really talking about when it comes, don't try to figure it all out. Just get moving. Just start. Get started on your project. I don't have it all figured out. I'm afraid if I get started, I'll fail. You're going to fail somewhere in that project, but you're going to get it back. You see, no knowledge, they had no knowledge between good and evil. And if we can, that's that childlike simplicity. Is a child afraid of evil? It's not afraid of much of anything, right? We can become that again. That's what Adam lost. This is the mindset the first man lost, but it's the mindset we can regain. The big question most people ask at some point in their lives are, who am I? Well, I tell you, you're the lights of the world. Don't cover it with a basket. You know, why am I here? Well, you know why you're here. Deep down, you know what you're supposed to do. You know, does God really exist? Yes. Lesson over, you know. Is he really inhabit eternity for me? Does he exist for me like it says in Deuteronomy? God exists for you. If you were the only person left on earth, God would exist for you. He does. He's a personal God. And what happens after I die? You're going to live again. So don't worry about dying. We're all going to die someday. You see, these questions have all been around since Adam and Eve. A well-placed question will make us think deeper and harder than if we'd just been given the answer. Remember your mom? Mom, how do you spell, whatever word? What would your mom usually tell you? Look it up. Yeah, sound it out. Look it up. God's the same way. Look it up. If you don't know something, look it up. Figure it out. Figure out your life. That's what we have brains for. See, a properly placed question can strip us of our innocence, as well as bring us back to reality of who we are and who we are in Christ, to that pure state of being, to the pure light of who we are. How would you like to shine like you're designed to shine? How would you like to see the miracles you're designed to see? How would you like to do the miracles? Then be the miracle. Be the miracle. Be the prayer. God will be whatever you need him to be, it says in the Bible. Why don't we be what we're supposed to be? Questions can make us shy, or the questions can make us shine. When we have self-doubt or we're criticized by another, let's not hide anymore. Let's not put on the camo. You see, let's let our light shine. We know who we are. We know why we're here, and we know we're never going to hide our gift again. We are never going to hide our gift again. Don't ask yourself if you're utilizing fully your gift. Ask yourself, what's the best way I can let my light shine today? You get up in the morning, what am I going to do that's going to change this world today? Did what you do yesterday, will you remember that when you're 70 or 80? Will you? What you did 3 days ago, maybe we should make every day a memorable day. Make every day memorable. Are you living your gift? Yes. Am I going to get it tomorrow? I'm going to make it better tomorrow. So, you see, let your light shine today. And always remember that let's respond to the questions that make us shine. God bless you all.